In this section, we're going to talk about optimization, where we maximize or minimize a quantity, and it is one of the most powerful uses of calculus across a variety of subjects and topics and real-world applications. And so the trick to optimization is often not the calculus portion of it. The calculus portion is something that we have been doing throughout this entire chapter and have gotten pretty good at, and that is finding where maximums and minimums lie. Given a function, finding where the maximums and the minimums are. That's something that we should be pretty comfortable with at this point. But it's the coming up of the function that we want to optimize, that we want to maximize or minimize. That's where we're going to spend some time working in this section and figure out how do we write these optimizing functions, these functions that we want to optimize. And so let's go ahead and explore some strategies and some problems. And here I have listed out just the basic steps to solve optimization problems. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to read through these pretty quickly. Worth putting down some notes on these, just to remember that the first thing we want to do when we come across a problem where we want to determine an optimal value, and when I say that word optimal, that's referencing a maximum or a minimum. So, and it depends upon the context. You know, sometimes we want to minimize the amount of material used to produce something or to make something. Sometimes we want to maximize, say, the profit in a business. So maximizing and minimizing, those are finding an optimal value for a function. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to read through the problem and just identify the key information. If possible, we can draw a picture or a diagram. Sometimes that's useful and sometimes it's not necessary or even applicable. Sometimes there's no drawing that could be associated. So if possible, do that if that's a worthwhile endeavor. The next thing we want to do is we want to assign variables. So we want to assign variables to the quantities that are given. And, you know, we often want to use notation or variables that would make sense in the context of the problem. So, you know, if we're talking about a cost of manufacturing olive oil, and maybe we want to minimize the cost, well, maybe we use C for cost. That would just be an example there. And by the way, if olive oil seems a little, you know, funny, a little off base to you there, like why olive oil? That's because I actually, with my husband, own an olive oil company, and that's something that we do and produce. So the business application of optimizing something is very real to me. Okay, then the third thing, use information that's given to determine two equations or possibly even more. We could end up with more equations if we have more constraints, but come up with an objective function. That's the function that we want to actually optimize. So whatever the quantity is, like in this case, the example I have above, it would be our cost equation. And then some sort of, given the information, there's going to be some sort of constraint equation. Okay? And so, you know, whatever the constraint might be, right? The constraint might be a dollar constraint or the ability to produce something, like maybe the whatever the product is that you're doing, the constraint might have to do with the material, how much material you have access to. Okay, after that, write the variable that we're trying to optimize. In this case, I've been using the example of cost. So write that cost in terms of just one other variable. So we are limited in Calculus 1 to single variable calculus. We don't have the ability to look at functions of multiple variables yet. I will say yet, because there's a whole branch, a whole nother section of calculus called multivariable calculus, where we get into that and we do write equations of multiple variables and optimize them, look at their maximums and minimums. So in this section though, or in this course, we are looking at functions of one variable. So we need functions, we need to write our objective function as a function of one variable. Again, back to that limitations of single variable calculus. Once we've done that, then we need to figure out what the domain of that function is. So we need to figure out the domain of your function. So whatever your function is, take a pause and look at the domain. Now, this sometimes does require that you look at the context that's given. Okay? Whereas a function with no context might have one domain. When you actually look at it in the context that it's given, it might have more restrictions. Okay? When you look at the real world context that's given, it might have more restrictions. So look at the big picture and determine what the domain of your function is. And then now that you have a function, this is where we get back into the calculus. So now we're into the calculus. So we get back to the calculus where we actually look and we find the absolute max or minimum. Okay? We use all of our calculus techniques. We take derivatives, find critical points, determine the local maxes and mins. And then if the domain is a closed interval, if you have a closed interval, you do have to consider the endpoints. So consider endpoints on closed intervals. That is because absolute maxes and mins can occur at endpoints. Absolute max and min values can occur at endpoints. Okay. Local maxes and mins don't occur at the endpoints, but the absolute maxes and mins can occur at the endpoint. So if you have a closed interval, if your restriction based on the context of the problem gives you a domain that's a closed interval, you do need to check those endpoints to make sure that your absolute max or min is not occurring at one of those points. Okay, so those are our steps, and now we're going to go through a couple of examples. I think on this video we'll go through the first example, a basic example, just to go through the process, and then we'll do a few more videos with additional examples. And I have provided in your course a worksheet that includes all of these examples that I'm doing, and I think it would be good practice on this particular topic to follow along. Get the process down, and then when I do skip problems on the worksheet, try those before you watch the next video. So once we've done one example, give it a try a few more on the worksheet, and then come back and watch the next video until you really get comfortable with this process of solving optimization problems. So here's the start to that worksheet that I provided in your course. And if we're gonna start off with this, and the first one I want to start with is just number 1. It's real simple. Find two positive real numbers whose product is 50 and they have the smallest possible sum. So these two numbers when added have the smallest possible sum that can happen given the other criteria that their product is 50. Okay, so that's the first one I want to go through, and I put it over here so that I can go ahead and write, but I just wanted to show you an image of the worksheet that you could be following along with as we do this. So here is our problem. Find two positive real numbers. All right, so just to start off, I'm working with two quantities, so we're just going to start off with let x and y be elements of the reals, right? That's our real notation that we're talking about real numbers. And not only that, we are also going to say that x and y are greater than 0, that they are positive. So we'll start off, we've got two positive real numbers. I've called them x and y. Okay. Whose product is 50 and they have the smallest possible sum. So let's organize this information. So what are we trying to do? Smallest. Well, smallest means a minimum. We're trying to minimize. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with the optimal equation. The equation that I want to optimize is going to be we're trying to minimize. So I'm actually going to even write that. So we're trying to minimize what? A sum. A sum of what? Well, a sum of these two. So I'm just going to call it S. S equals x plus y. We're trying to minimize S, the sum. Okay? And we're also given the fact that the product of these two numbers has to be 50. That's my constraint. So I'm trying to minimize a sum, and I have a constraint. Remember, the process we just went through is to determine what it is, your objective function, what you're trying to minimize or optimize, in this case minimize, and then what is the constraint or constraints that are given on the variables. And in this case, the constraint is that the product has to be 50. So product, well, x times y has to be equal to 50. So that's the constraint. Well, now we have to put essentially these things together. Because I want to write a function that I can minimize, I need s to be a function of a single variable. So here's my little thought process. I need this to be a function of one variable. It actually doesn't really matter which variable I choose, but I need this to be a function of one variable so that I can actually take its derivative and find the minimum, right? Use all my calculus stuff. So in order to write that as a function of one variable, I'm going to use the constraint and I'm going to solve for y, and I'm going to say, well, y has to be 50 over x, and then I can plug that back into my sum function and actually create a function of one variable. So s of x is x plus 50 over x. And now I have a function that I can optimize, that I can find the maximum or minimum of and consider it. Okay, so now that I have this function, we need to consider the domain. So what is the domain of this function? Now, the domain, you have to consider two things. You have to, one, consider the function that you've created, but you also have to consider the context. So, for instance, if I had just this function, like if I came across just the function I have highlighted, the domain is going to be all reals except for 0. So from negative infinity to 0 and from 0 to infinity. That would be the domain of this function. But we also have to consider any restrictions that are given. And remember, at the beginning, we were told that we had two positive real numbers. So there's the function, but then there's also the context. So always remember that when you're coming up with the domain. So the domain is going to be from 0 to infinity, or if you prefer, you could write that as x has to be greater than 0, which we knew above as well. Okay? All right, so that is the domain. It is an open interval. We're not looking at a closed interval, but that is the domain. And now we want to find the minimum. So we want to find the value of x from 0 to infinity that would minimize this sum. So, excuse me, how do we minimize? This is where we get into the calculus. Right, now we've done some algebra, now we get to get into the calculus. So we're going to minimize it. So we're going to take the derivative. Remember, our process for minimizing is take the derivative, find the critical points, make a sign chart for the derivative, figure out where it increases, decreases, and determine where we have local maxes and mins. And then check endpoints if we had a restricted closed interval domain. So take the derivative. The derivative of that function is going to be 1 minus 50 over x squared. And so just a quick, what I did there was I said x plus, in my head, I said that was just 50 times x to the negative first, so that's negative 50x to the negative second, and then I rewrote it. Okay, so that's my derivative. Let's now find critical points. So when is 1 minus 50 over x squared equal to 0? We should also consider when 1 minus 50 over x squared is undefined, which of course is when x equals 0, but that's outside the domain, right? Outside the domain. And in fact, I think it might even be outside my screen. So let's scooch that over. So that's outside the domain. So what points are within that interval from 0 to infinity? So let's see, what would that be when 1 equals 50? When x squared equals 50? When x equals plus or minus the square root of 50, which is, of course, plus or minus 5 root 2, but the minus is outside the domain as well. Put that there too. Okay, so the only critical point, on the interval from 0 to infinity. So we have just a single critical point on that interval. I'm going to highlight our derivative so we keep it in focus on the screen. And now let's take our sign chart and determine if that critical point is a max, a min, or neither for that matter. So sine of s prime of x. And again, we only have one, and we're going from 0 to infinity. So we've got positive 5 root 2. Check the sign. And you do have to justify, right? Even if you only have one, you can't just make the assumption that it's going to be a minimum. You have to justify. So let's take something like 5 root, so something to the left of 5 root 2, like 1. If I plug in 1 into this derivative, 1 minus 50 is clearly negative, so it's decreasing. Then plug in something like 10. 50 over 100, if I plugged in 10, would be 1/2, so that would be positive. 1 minus 1/2 would be positive, so it must be increasing. We do know that this is a horizontal tangent because the derivative was equal to 0, so we decrease, hit a horizontal tangent, and then increase. This must, in fact, be a minimum. Okay? But again, we did need to justify it. So x equals 5 root 2 is a minimum. And now we can summarize. So we know that x equals I'm going to come up here to my summary. I've got my next example is kind of lined up there, so let me scoot that out a little bit so we have a little more space. So now we can come up and we can answer the question. We're trying to find those two positive numbers, two positive real numbers given these constraints. So x, we just found x equals 5 root 2 is a minimum, and we showed it, we justified it with calculus. That is a minimum to this function, to s of x equals x plus 50 over x. And y, so the two numbers, so we would want to answer the two numbers are x equals 5 root 2 and, well, we could we could find y, 50 over 5 root 2, just plug that in, and we'd get 25. Oops, not 25, 10. 10 over root 2, which would be also 5 root 2. Notice those numbers are the same. So that is 5 root 2. So the two numbers are 5 root 2 and 5 root 2. And the sum, add those two together, has to be 10 root 2. The minimum sum, let's go ahead and say that. The two numbers are 5 root 2 and 5 root 2, and the minimum sum achievable, where we have two positive numbers whose product is 50, has to be 10 root 2. That's the smallest sum that we could possibly get if we have two numbers whose product is 50. Okay, and we've shown everything. We've shown all the steps here, and that's what we want to do. We want to find the function, we want to take its derivative, and we want to show that the critical point or points that we get are either maxes or minimums. We need to justify all of our work here. Okay, so that's the process. When we come back, we'll do some more examples.